What's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I am Carolina, your San Diego realtor, and this week I'm here to talk to you about 5 different things you should probably think about before buying rural property, especially out here in San Diego. That would cover Ramona, Lakeside, Jamul, Escondido areas, etc. So for the first thing in regards to buying rural property in San Diego, what you have to think about is if the property is on well or septic. If the property has well and septic tanks in it, you really need to make sure you get those inspected, especially if on the septic side. You have to make sure you're okay with that. Do you prefer to have plumbing where you flush and it leaves, or if you flush and it stays under your backyard type thing? The septic, you need to make sure to inspect it for the condition of the tank as well as the life left within the tank. If it's brand new, then great, you're solid and it's there forever. Or if it's nearing the end of its life, you have to figure out how much it'll cost you to replace a septic tank. How exactly does that work? I have no idea. I've never lived one where there's a septic tank, but it's costs to consider. As well with a well, you have to make sure that you test the water to make sure that it's safe, that it's usable, as well as finding out if it's a private well within your own property or if you're sharing it with a neighbor. Number 2 would be insurance. The fire hazard zones for San Diego are very much so within the rural areas, especially out in Lakeside. I've literally shown homes in Lakeside when there's a fire on the mountain and then we're like 2 minutes away from it. It can be pretty drastic depending on the year, depending on the climate changes and all that. But it's something you have to consider. So if you're in a rural area in San Diego, you definitely have to take into consideration the insurance, whether it's fire hazard, whatever it may be. Hydrants tend to be further apart when you're in the rural areas, so it makes it even more expensive. But that's something you need to take into consideration. Number 3 is more land equals more maintenance. If you have a lot of yard space or you have a farm,
do you now need a little riding John Deere lawnmower where you're driving around going back and forth and you're not walking it anymore? Is that going to fit in your garage, or do you also now have to buy like a tool shed? There's more water to water your lawn unless you're having a drought-friendly landscaping. But if you have a farm, you got to water those plants.
So there's all these different things that you now have to take into consideration for the maintenance. You have like an acre to 100 acres of land that you have to maintain depending on what you're doing with it, obviously. Number 4 is transportation. Obviously, you already know how far out you're going for a home, but you also have to take into consideration the time it is to travel for your work, for shopping, for medical, for food, for schools. Are your kids still in school? Are you still going to school? All of these things need to be taken into consideration, because while you might be okay with commuting for work, you might not want to leave and drop off your kids before the school even opens type thing, because you still have to get to work on time. So transportation is definitely something you have to take into consideration. And number 5 are utilities. Garbage is different within the city and the county. Internet might now require you to have a landline.
Most people might not even remember what a landline is at this point, but it's the phone that hangs on the wall.
So utilities are going to be different. Again, the water might be a well. Your sewer might not be sewer. It's probably going to be a septic. Garbage is going to be different. Your internet, aka your Wi-Fi, is going to require you to have another phone that sits on the counter that nobody uses but rings every once in a while, especially in the middle of a scary movie. It's all different things you have to take into consideration. Again, number 1 was a well and septic tanks. Make sure those are still viable and usable. Number 2, insurance. Fire insurance is hard enough to get in Southern California. When you're in a rural area surrounded by brush, it might be a little bit harder. Number 3, more land equals more maintenance. Number 4 is transportation, not just the commute, but transportation to everything else. And number 5 are your utilities. If you have any other questions about buying rural property, leave a comment and I will do my best to answer anything you have. Please comment, like, and subscribe. As always, thank you, and I'll see you next time.